up, Rapport family? We're back with Building Rapport. Joining me today is friend of the show from 247's The Late Kick, Josh Pate. Let me bring Josh in here to talk things Auburn football. Josh, thanks for joining me, man. Applause, many applause for Josh Pate. Look, man, it's been a while since we've talked. And I wanted to open today's show talking a little bit about something we do every year, which is the over-under on Auburn. Last year, you and I took the over. That didn't work out. In year two, what should we expect here? My guy JD PKL from On 3 said he's taking the over this year, so he's going over under 7.5 wins. That's where Vegas has set the line.
You know what I think it's smart to do, Mike? I'm going to be the guy who takes the under. Whether I actually believe it or not, I'm going to be the guy who takes the under. Here's my thought process here.
All right.
First off, like I think everyone knows, the over is the very popular bet for any team because it's glass half full. No one's ever going to get hurt. Everything's going to bounce our way. So maybe you need the pessimist in the room. Maybe you need the guy to walk in the room, and maybe it's not the worst thing in the world for people to be saying "told you so" at the end of the day, as opposed to you and I sitting here like idiots right now saying, "Why didn't we see this coming?
Yeah.
Why?" So, look, that number is always going to be sharp. I right now absolutely am in the 7 or 8 win range in my mind with them. So 7.5 makes sense. But if someone needs to be the bad guy, if someone needs to take the under, give me the under. I'll take the under.
I think 7 is a good win total for them in year two.
I agree.
Given what they have to work with on the schedule. Now, I will tell you, after my one-on-one sit down with Peyton Thorne, it gave me a little bit more confidence that they might hit that 8. He talked about alignment. Hugh Freeze talked about alignment, and our one-on-one. He fired both coordinators after year one, so they think they have it together now. And they had 2 wins on the schedule, Josh, that they kind of gave back. New Mexico and 4th and 31. So, what are the chances that they win this year's 4th and 31?
Yeah, so I'm looking at their schedule right now is the reason I'm looking down. The other thing you always have to remember here is, you've got Oklahoma on here. You've got games at Missouri and Kentucky. Like, it's really hard to do the win total thing when you not only need to think you know what your team is, but you're also just assuming you know what the other guys are. Well, there are some years where some random game at some random place in November that you penciled in as a win all of a sudden becomes a top 15 matchup. But the other thing happens too, as you well know. You could have Oklahoma not living up to expectation. You could have Missouri not living up to expectation. And then you find yourself playing them. And first off, wow, we're favored in this game. Whoever thought? And secondly, you're thinking to yourself, man, remember how big a deal we made of the fact that we had to play this game back in July, and now look at it. It's an afterthought. No one's even got it on the main radar for this Saturday. So for many reasons, yeah, it's an inexact science. But the other part of that is, now I'm not always the biggest believer that the whole, year over year thing bears a lot of fruit in leaning on. But you are right. When you look back last year, not only do you have the Iron Bowl example, but you also have the Georgia example that was a razor-tight game.
Played them tough.
Right. So if my question is always, what if I inverted both of those results? What if Milroe's pass falls incomplete? What if Bowers doesn't make one more play? They win both of those games. They're still the same team entering this year. The difference would be, my friend, that'd be a top 15 team, and everyone would be talking about dark horse for the SEC, and we would probably be looking around saying, yeah, we get it because of the 2 big upsets they pulled last year, whereas in this world, they're the plucky underdog. Not much is expected from them. It's just so funny how a couple of results here and there can totally change perspective. I feel the same way if they had gone and gotten a quarterback out of the portal, by the way. That would have rocketed expectation, and I think they knew they were more than a quarterback away, which is maybe the reason they didn't press the issue at quarterback this year. But had they gone and gotten a big-time name out of the portal, had they gone and gotten like Cam Ward or someone like that, people would be looking at them saying, that team right there, that's the one that could contend for the SEC. That's the one that could be in Atlanta. And if you dove in a little bit deeper, you would come to find, well, there's still some holes on this team. Let's be careful there. You'd be the one pumping the brakes instead of trying to hit the gas right now. So that perception thing, man, in summer, it's a funny, funny creature.
Well, a lot was made of the talent last year, Josh. And Hugh Freeze had some auspicious comments after his bowl game saying that he was busy recruiting and didn't have enough time to spend, in-game week planning, which did not play well in the media. But he's got some of the talent that he says that he needed this year. He's got top 5 overall recruiting in the country, Cam Coleman. I expect him to get the ball early and often. All the quarterbacks seem to show some sort of chemistry with Cam. It's nice to have a guy that can go up and get it. He talks a lot about catch radius, so we'll see. But you mentioned Oklahoma, and I want to pivot there for a second. Oklahoma comes to Auburn for the first time in the history of college football. And in the expanded SEC, we're getting games that may have only been bowl games in the past, right? Like, we're getting some really exciting games here. Talk about how pivotal that game is on the front end of a stretch that sees Auburn play Oklahoma at home, Georgia on the road, Missouri on the road, and Kentucky on the road.
Yeah, it's really weird, the schedule setup where they don't leave Auburn for a long time to start the season. With Oklahoma now, I don't know if Auburn folks realize this, but there's a 2-week stretch for them. They got Tennessee at home to start conference play. Then they go to Auburn, and you're talking about just like a 1-2 punch. Because think about this: Heupel at Tennessee goes back to Oklahoma, where he once played, and people knowing the history there know there's really no love lost in some ways between he and that athletic department. So you got that to intro you into conference play. Then you go to Auburn the following week, and despite what the lists that are circulating out there say, it's one of the toughest places to play in America. What if they start 0-2? Or what if they just lose the Tennessee game and they're coming into the Auburn game already being 0-1 in conference play, like really, really quickly? You feel the kind of heat, if you're Oklahoma, that the Big 12 conference schedule, all due respect to it, never could have put on you. Yeah, and so sure. Like that one, again, that is what, the 28th? Yeah, that's the 28th. I don't think anyone, when we go to like media days in a few weeks, or when you look at the national preview magazines and stuff, I doubt that Auburn or Oklahoma at Auburn is going to be on anyone's marquee. But yet when we get to that Saturday, it's just life in the SEC that they're now a part of at Oklahoma, that you realize, dude, this is a pressure cooker of a week. You all of a sudden wake up on Tuesday and realize a lot of our preseason goals could evaporate if we don't win Saturday. And so that's the beauty and the nightmare of the sport.
There have been a lot of lists released recently about toughest places to play in the country. Auburn maybe a little further down the list than I liked, but
don't look at me, people. I had them top 5. I had Jordan here staying in top 5, so it's not on me. I just want the credit. I don't want any of the blame.
Well, I'll tell you what, I think the Sooners are going to find out pretty quickly coming to Auburn what a tough place that is. Josh, let's talk about the portal for a second. Our friend, SEC Mike, made a statement recently on the 3-man front. Love the 3-man front. I go on there occasionally. But he said that he doesn't like the way that Hugh Freeze is building this program, and he thinks that the portal is the way that you have to do it. Now, my friend J.D. Piquel, I got to make sure I quote on this one. He described over depending on the portal to build a program as trying to get your healthy diet kicked off eating Uber Eats. It's going to be expensive and it's unlikely to work. What do you think about the portal versus high school recruiting now? NIL has kind of changed the game, and is Hugh Freeze doing this the right way, focusing on a base of high school recruits and then picking what he needs from the portal in spots here and there?
He's doing it the only way. It's not just the right way. He's doing it the only way. Make no mistake, I know the portal is the big flashy object in the room. I believe in using it. So I've got takes on how Dabo Swinney goes about it. But having said that, if you're going to lean on that, if that's going to be the foundation of your roster building strategy, you're not building a sustainable roster. Mike, you're not building a program. Even folks like Mike Norvell. Mike Norvell went to Florida State, and he leaned on that thing heavily. But he leaned on it to kickstart. He didn't lean on it as a sustained strategy. Lincoln Riley, same thing at USC. He leaned on it. I was listening to him talk the other day. We were out in LA, and he was talking about how very quickly we at USC, we have had to shift from, all right, there's our jump start. Like we attached the jumper cables to the battery. We jump started it. We had a good year. We had some impact players, but all the while we're looking for a service station. Like we got to go in there. We got to do it the right way to sustain long-term. Look, again, I use that word program intentionally. No program and no elite coach out there. I heard Mike talk on the show. He was talking about elite coaches and is Hugh Freeze or isn't Hugh Freeze an elite coach? Well, if you're using that word and you're using the word program, I want you to find me any guy that you do term to be elite and ask him how he's building his program. Ask Kirby how he's doing it. Ask Saban how he did it. Ask Ryan Day. You can fill in the blank. You can choose the names, but once you give me the names, I want to bring them in and I want to ask them, how do you feel? What's your philosophy? Because I sit down with all of them. I was on 20 campuses this spring, and every single one of them talked about the same thing. They talked about sustained building out of high school. That's what they all talked about. So either they're all lying, which they're in this case they're not, or someone's got it badly mistaken in the room. And Mike's a good guy. As Meemaw used to always tell me, smart people can say casual things. Casual people rarely say smart things. And there's a big difference there. And I think that Mike is just a smart person who happened to have a casual take there.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty casual as well. Look, Hugh Freeze has said that they've got to recruit. Brian Harsin got a lot of heat from the fan base for the perception around high school recruiting, Josh. And so Hugh Freeze said, no, sir, not me. And if you think about how year one went for him, the perception around high school recruiting really extended him grace with, the people he reports to and the fan base as well, too. He said, give me time to build this thing overnight. I ran into him at the SEC tournament in Nashville for basketball. And I kind of said, hey, coach, when are we going to be celebrating your next SEC championship? And he looked me dead in my eye, Josh, and said, Mike, I need 2 more recruiting classes.
Yes.
Right. He said the portal is not the way to do this thing. And, it's just not the way to do it. We got to get these guys from high school. We got them developed. I need 2 more years to do that. So that's the expectation he set. Then, I assume they talked about that when he got hired. And the people in charge kind of know, what his strategy is there. And they're going to give him time to do that. Auburn went 6-7. It's been 3 years since Auburn has had a winning record, which is crazy. On the Plains, Hugh Freeze is looking to turn that around this year. Give me one game, Josh, on this schedule that you think might be pivotal for Auburn in hitting that over. Again, you've got Georgia on the road, you've got Alabama on the road, you've got Missouri on the road, you've got Oklahoma at home, all which should be top 15 matchups, right? Is there a game that stands out to you as one that, hey, this is going to be a tough matchup, but if Auburn gets this one, I like the over?
Yeah, it would either be the game at Missouri or it would be the A&M game the week before. I think it's the week before the Iron Bowl. Mm-hmm. And I say the at Missouri game because it's in that road stretch. Missouri is a team that a lot is expected out of. Missouri's the kind of team that right now I think you would look at, and if you were clustering teams in the SEC for the first time in a while for this year, for 2024, you would have Missouri in a cluster above Auburn. And that's not normally the case. But this particular year, that happens to be the case. So if you can go up there and you can steal a win, like Missouri, not the toughest place in the world to play. It's a place you can travel to. Your fan base can travel to. You can go steal a win up there. It's crazy to say steal a win at Missouri. But I think about that one. But then late in the year now, if you're already bowl eligible and you're looking to get past 7 wins, you're looking to get to 8 wins, you may be looking at the prospect of either having to go upset Bama in Tuscaloosa, and we don't know what they're going to be this year.
Haven't done it since 2010.
Yeah, like that's not, if it happens, great. That's not something I'd sit here in July and expect. So what I can bank on a little bit more is the week before that, your last home game of the year. If things are promising, if it's been bumpy, but you've seen enough to keep you bought in the whole season, therefore Jordan-Hare Stadium that week before the Iron Bowl for A&M coming in there is everything it should be. A&M, that's the game. Like that's a big game. I don't think Auburn fans would. I don't think most SEC fans that are hardcore would, but I think that there's the tendency for national fans to fall into this trap of listening to me say that and say A&M, but they're not even ranked or they're not going to be top 10. A&M is a roster littered with future NFL guys. Yeah. A&M is a place that is on fire right now and charged up because they think they got their head coach of the future. There'll be a program, not just a team, but a program looking for a springboard win. Going into Auburn and winning late in the year for them would be something they sell in recruiting. It's something they package up and use as motivation. So you extinguish that, and then you get your win, and then whatever the Iron Bowl is whatever the Iron Bowl is. I'm not chalking it up as a loss. I'm just saying it's a tall task as we sit here in July. So I'd say at Missouri, I'd say A&M game, second to last weekend of the year.
Yeah, the schedule is interesting, right? Like you mentioned, they set it up for Auburn to play 5 straight home games, and then they don't have a home game for a month. And there's a bye week in there. Hugh Freeze thinks this setup is bad for fans. He said, 5 straight home games is really hard on our fans. I felt like we needed a break somewhere in there, right? 2 bye weeks on this schedule this year for everybody in the SEC. So it'll be interesting to see. But you mentioned Alabama, and I want to pivot here to close our segment today. Kalen DeBoer is now the coach. We've talked about Kalen before, and you mentioned it being a tall task to go into Tuscaloosa and get the win, Josh. But is anybody really scared of Kalen DeBoer's Alabama right now? I mean, we've seen coaches come in after Saban, like Les Miles, if we're being honest, he won a championship with some of Saban's recruits. And
let's be careful, Mike. There are pending lawsuits there. There are pending lawsuits, so let's be careful.
All right, I got my lawyer on retainer, Josh. But if for Hugh Freeze coming in now, he played Alabama to the very last play last year with the talent that he had. Does what Kalen DeBoer employ as a strategy on the football field translate to the SEC?
It will translate because it's football. It will translate. Okay. I think what you presented there is an interesting dynamic. You said, is anyone scared of him?
Yeah.
No, they're not. Here's the thing. People lose fights all the time that they're not scared to partake in. Like the whole intimidation and fear thing. I've always found that really funny. I've found it funny in sports. They don't just use it in football. Hey, at least in football, you get to put your hands on the other guy. Sometimes I'll hear him say it in golf. In baseball, the intimidation factor, like the fear factor, I'm like, who needs to be scared to get their tail kicked? And so in football, I think it's the same way. Nick Saban had an aura about him that was well-deserved, and it was earned over years and years and years of winning. DeBoer, having been in the room with both of them plenty of times, DeBoer does not give off the same aura. He doesn't have the same mystique. I'm not saying it's media created, because Saban did a lot to warrant the media creating it. But once Saban got going, the media fed those flames. And so he was presented as larger than life. And so, when Nick Saban and Alabama walk in the building, you're going to have to give 120% of yourself to win. Well, I don't know that that's the way DeBoer and Alabama will be presented. But the thing about it is, Mike, that's not the way Washington was presented. And they still kept beating people last year. That's not the way he was presented at Fresno. In the NAIA world, that's not the way he was presented. So I look at it and I don't ask myself, will the mystique around this guy be the same? What I ask is this recruiting thing they're doing right now for real? Like, is that going to continue that way? Because look, the big story in this conference right now is not Kalen DeBoer getting hired at Alabama. Is that guy going to be a top 5 recruiter? If he is, it's a nightmare for the rest of the conference, because the hope for a lot of folks was they never thought he sucked as a coach. Like, I think everyone understands that guy's a heck of a football coach. It's that he's not going to be able to recruit at the highest level. So he's going to have to out-scheme us on Saturdays, because he's not going to out-recruit half a dozen schools down here Monday through Friday. But if they're hanging in recruiting, and it's really early, so this is a what if they hang in recruiting, if they're a top 5 recruiter every year, they're not taking a back seat on Saturday. And so like that to me, that's a long form discussion, but that's what I'm watching that as close as anything right now. I'm watching Elko at A&M. I'm watching Freeze at Auburn, and then DeBoer at Alabama for different reasons. But those three dynamic wise, they are going to significantly impact the next half decade of this conference one way or the other.
Yeah, consistently out-scheming people in this conference. We've talked about this before, right? Like, I think it was you that said you're not going to out-develop Nick Saban and Kirby Smart. You need guys on the field that are better than the guys that they have. And, once all things are even, scheme wins, right? So a lot of things that I think that he has to keep going there. Now, obviously, it's not like they don't have talent just because Saban left. There's still talent there in Tuscaloosa. There's still a lot of talent there in Tuscaloosa. But the and this is why I think we're going to be at media days in just under a month here in Dallas, Texas. And I think this is why SEC media days is such an event. You have the best football coaching minds in college football, a lot of them in the same conference, Josh. And week in and week out, you not only have to outdo their dudes, you have to outdo their coaches.
Yep.
Every week. And so I'll be interested to see. I don't think that you would disagree with me that the average level of talent and coaching that they're going up against in the SEC is equal to what you saw in the Pac, right?
Yeah.
Like defensively, everybody passes for 3,000 yards in that now defunct conference. This is going to be a little bit hard to write defensively.
Yes, and there's another hidden factor here. I'm going to talk about it more on my show tonight as we're recording. I'm going to talk about it more on my show tonight. There is a rule that just got passed that kind of went under the radar, and that is the NCAA acknowledging the obvious, which is analysts have been coaching on the field for a long time. It's just after they close practice, the media has been happening. So now you're unlimited. Your staff size unlimited. Off-field analysts can now be on-field analysts. They can work with players. Well, here's what that does. It's going to further decimate G5 and FCS coaching rosters because now you can go for $80,000 and you can go hire a guy that was a position coach at the FCS level that's a really strong 25-year-old up-and-comer, and now he's one of an army of analysts at Florida. And they can work on field, so he's not hidden, he's not tucked away like they used to be. And so the depth and the quality of coaching rosters in this conference is about to separate even further from the Pac than it already was. And so, yeah, man, we watch the players play, but the game within the game of just staff versus staff, I don't know how to judge that necessarily. I don't know that the viewer thinks about that at home, Mike. We talk about it a lot, but it's going to play out probably at as high a level as it's ever played out week to week from this point moving forward in the SEC.
Josh, let's close out. I'm going to try to get a hot take from you. I'm going to try to get a hot take from you with this next question.
I got one for you, Mike. I got one for you right now.
Okay.
If we reinvented this game today,
okay,
wipe your memory clean, you don't know anything, and we reintroduce the game today, I think college football would be phenomenal if it were a spring sport instead of a fall sport. So there's your hot take.
Okay, spring football. Mm-hmm. Oh man, that's going to be some humid stuff down south. Not gonna lie, spring football. The college football playoff has expanded to 12 teams. Before we get out of here, what do you think about the chances that Auburn could make the back end of a 12-team playoff with the schedule that they have?
I don't buy it. Low percentage, so non-0% chance. I don't buy it. I am very curious, though. Let's just say Auburn is a 9-3 team. That means they've overachieved. So let's say they're a 9-3 team and they are in the at-large pool. So they're a candidate. I'm wondering when we get to that point, if there's so you got like a conference champ. Let's say you got 4 just no doubt slam dunk SEC teams in this thing. When we start getting into the 5 or 6 range, even if there are qualified teams, and Auburn's one of them, let's say Auburn and Missouri are sitting there and they're 9-3 apiece, and that committee is starting to judge those against 11-1 teams from other conferences. Are they really going to pull the trigger on a 5th or 6th SEC team at the expense of having a second Big 12 team, or at the expense of having like a second ACC team? In a perfect world, or in a just world, the answer is yes. Because in a just world, conference affiliation shouldn't matter. But you and I both know that this is not a just world. We're already giving auto bids. So in any circumstance, if you got auto bids, it's not a just world. I know people would disagree with me on that, but I don't think so, because even in Auburn's best case, to me, the best case for Auburn is they just get themselves inserted into the at-large pool. And at that point, they're still going to need a solid benefit of the doubt, which I think will work against them. Now, this is a theory of mine. A lot of people are going to claim SEC bias. I actually think, Mike, if we went pure blind resume at the end of these years and strength of schedule was properly accounted for, you'd end up getting more SEC teams in the playoff than you're going to get, because there will be that human nature element in the committee that says, well, this resume is better, but that's another SEC team. If we let them in, we've got 6. Half the field is the SEC. We can't do that. Whether that should be the talking point or not, it will be the talking point. So for all the folks that cry SEC bias, I actually think your best bet for limiting how many SEC teams are in the pool is that SEC sticker on the back of people's helmets.
Yeah, look, I think it's a given, Josh. 3 SEC teams in almost automatically. If last year's field had a playoff, I think Georgia, Missouri, and Ole Miss make that playoff easily, right? Yeah, so you start to get into a discussion of resume when you're only losing to each other. Ole Miss's only losses last year were Alabama and Georgia. And with the way Jackson Dart played and the way they looked against everybody else, that Tulane win ended up looking really good by the end of the year. And I don't know. To me, I think it's going to be tough to keep 4 SEC teams out of this thing, but 3 are a given. And depending with Oklahoma and Texas joining the conference, could there be a 5th team that slides in there? People won't like it, but that's the world we live in. Like you said, it's not a fair world. What is a fair world is one where Josh Pate joins me here at the War Rapport. We do this often. He gets accused of being a Bammer at least 10 times a week.
Yeah.
But look, Josh, I've got your back every single time I hear that.
Hey, if it means anything to anybody watching, the biggest accusation that's hurled my way after I do this show is Auburn homerism. So if that makes you feel any better, then just take that with you as a sleeping pillow later tonight.
Yeah, we use this show to help round out your reputation there. Josh, I want to thank you for joining me. Look, I'll see you out at Media Days, and I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about next month in Dallas.
Absolutely. I appreciate it, man.
Guys, that's it for another great edition of Building Rapport with my guy, Josh Pate from 247's Late Kick. If you want more content like this, please hit like and subscribe. We are the War Rapport on every social media platform. TW Rapport on TikTok. We're signing off, and as always, War Eagle.